When you say, Jake, you guys are the minority, the majority of people actually are Ash'ari or Maturidi, and you go based upon country. Look, most of the people don't know what Ash'aris and Maturidis teach, and if they did, they would reject it. Not according to Brother Jake, according to Al-Ghazali, according to As-Sanusi, according to Al-Razi, according to the heads and the scholars of the Ash'ari Aqidah. Assalamu alaikum everyone, welcome back to Jake Brancatella 2.0. And in today's video, I'm going to go into a little bit of detail from one of the scholars of the Ash'aris, Al-Ghazali. He's very well known. Most people familiar with Islamic theology will be familiar with the figure of Al-Ghazali, sometimes referred to as Hujjat al-Islam. Now, unfortunately, just as many other Ash'aris, he had a very bad view of the awam, or the lay people, the common people. In one aspect, he's kind of correct, and in another aspect, he's wrong. And I'll explain what I mean by that. But this is not a unique perspective to Al-Ghazali. As-Sanusi says the same thing. Many of the other heads of the Ash'aris say the same thing about the common people, that they have, according to the Ash'aris and Maturidis, they hold to kufri beliefs, and that if we actually speak to them about what Ash'ari creed says, then they won't accept it, and many of them will actually reject the truth. This is a common thread that you'll find amongst the Ash'ari scholars. But when I say this, people think, oh no, Brother Jake, what are you talking about? The Ash'aris and Maturidis are the majority of the Ummah. They always say this. They always make this claim. They are the majority of the Ummah. Well, all of your scholars explicitly reject and deny this. I showed this with As-Sanusi. I showed this with other quotes from other Ash'ari scholars in other videos in the past. And I've written an entire article on this subject, which will be in the link in the description of this video. But here, I just want to show a few quotes from Al-Ghazali affirming that the majority of people, overwhelming majority of them, the awam, the lay people who are Muslims, are not actually Ash'ari in creed and explicitly reject it. And we'll see whose creed they're actually following in just a second. If you're enjoying this video and benefiting from the content on my channel and would like to continue to do so and see this channel grow, then please consider supporting my work at the pinned links at the top of the description of this video, as well as in the comment section. Your support is much needed and appreciated. Barakallahu feek. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless and reward you all. Let's take a look at some of these quotes. So, Al-Ghazali says here in the first quote, there is no difference between the common people who have not practiced the sciences, meaning speaking about the awam, and wild asses, wild donkeys, fleeing from a lion. This is a great way to speak, right? Do you not see how they believe about Allah, exalted is He, that He is sitting on the throne with a green canopy beneath Him, along with the rest of what they have imagined regarding ambiguous matters, or the mutashabihat. Most people, meaning most of the Muslims, are anthropomorphists. They liken Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to creation. This is what Al-Ghazali is saying. Though anthropomorphism comes in degrees. Okay, let's see what he's going to say. Some anthropomorphize in the form of, they affirm what? That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a hand, has a yad, has an eye, that He descends and that He moves. Others affirm anger and pleasure, wrath and joy. I just want to actually note that the scholar of Al-Ghazali's madhab, where he receives his name from, Abu al-Hasan al-Ash'ari, he himself affirmed yad Allah. He himself affirmed an eye for Allah. So he's actually condemning many early Ash'aris with this quote. But anyway, nevertheless, let's continue. Others affirm anger and pleasure, wrath and joy. So wait, when the Quran and Sunnah say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gets happy or is joyful with the actions of His creatures, or that he gets anger or is wrathful with certain evil actions of his creatures. No. We can't actually understand that upon its apparent meaning, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually does get angry or joyful. No. We can't understand it that way because of some sophisticated, fake, pseudo-rational aqli principles that they get from outside of Islam. We can't accept those things. We can't accept the Quran and Sunnah on its apparent meaning because for them, it is kufr, and some of their own scholars have explicitly said this, that the dhahir of the Quran and Sunnah are actually kufr. So Al-Ghazali continues, these terms have only been employed in the sacred law metaphorically and with interpretation, meaning we must make ta'wil of these texts where it says Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a yad or an eye, or that he gets angry or experiences wrath and joy. Any of these texts, we must actually make ta'wil of them, and we can't accept them on their apparent meaning. Then Al-Ghazali continues, those who understand them, and those who reject them, reject them. If people were equal in understanding, then the saying of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam would be nullified. Perhaps a bearer of fiqh is not a faqih, and perhaps a bearer of fiqh carries it to one more knowledgeable than he. This is a statement from the Prophet ﷺ that he's quoting. So let us bypass this discourse, for it is the chain of madmen and unlocks the shackles of shaitan, or the Satan. So we see very clearly here that Al-Ghazali is saying that the awam of the Muslims, the common people, they affirm Yadullah. They affirm that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gets angry and is happy with the actions of his creatures, depending on what they are. And he says that most of the awam, most of the Muslims, the common people, are actually anthropomorphists, right? And that they believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is actually above his throne. Now, it's not just that he said it in one place. Let's take a look at another text. Al-Ghazali says, if a seeker of guidance happened to be a Turk or an Indian, wow, this seems pretty racist from Ghazali, or a man who was dull and coarse in temperament, and it became known that if it were said to him, Allah's essence is not in a place, nor is he inside the world, nor outside of the world, nor connected to the world, nor separate from it, he would quickly come to deny Allah's existence and disbelieve in him. So what he's saying is, if you actually explained the Ash'ari Aqidah or doctrine to a common person, which one of their positions is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is neither, he's not in a makan, he's not in a place, he's neither inside the world nor outside of the world, he's neither connected to the world nor separate from it. He's saying if you explain that to a common person, a common Muslim, 99.9% of the Muslims out there, then what would they do? They would quickly deny this belief and deny Ash'ari Aqidah and disbelieve in Allah. So they would be committing kufr. Therefore, Al-Ghazali says, then it is appropriate to affirm to him, or meaning for the person to affirm, that Allah is on the throne, that he is pleased by the worship of his creation and rejoices in it, and that he rewards them and admits them into paradise as a compensation and recompense. This is again connected to another Ash'ari doctrine where they don't believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is joyful with the good actions of his creatures. They don't believe that he's angry with the evil actions of his creatures. They don't believe that he actually rewards and punishes people based upon their own actions. No, because there is no causal connection between Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala punishing someone or rewarding someone based upon their actions, because Allah does not act for reasons. He does not act for a divine hikmah or wisdom. He doesn't act for any reason whatsoever, and I've explained that in a detailed video which will be pinned in the description of this video as well. The Ash'aris believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not act for any reasons. So he's not actually rewarding you with paradise or punishing people with hellfire because of their actions. It has nothing to do with that whatsoever. There is no causal connection between the two. But the common people obviously believe this because that's what the Quran and Sunnah clearly say, and that's what the common sense or fitrah actually denotes. And then Al-Ghazali continues, and if it is possible to disclose to him what is the manifest truth, then let it be disclosed. In this respect, the doctrine changes and varies, and one should deal with each person according to what his understanding can bear. So he's saying most people will not accept this, so don't tell the actual Ash'ari Aqidah to most people about Allah being neither inside the world nor outside the world, neither connected to it nor disconnected to it, that He doesn't actually punish or reward people based upon their actions in any sense. Don't tell the common people this, because most of them will reject it. But the small amount of people that may accept it, we can tell them. And he says, so the doctrine, meaning what we tell people about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or about the Aqidah of what the Quran and Sunnah say, it changes depending upon the person. If he's just a common person like most Muslims out here, we won't tell him anything like that. We'll tell him, yeah, sure, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is above His throne. He's outside of creation. There's no problem with that. He rejoices in the good actions of His creatures, or He gets angry at their evil actions, and He rewards or punishes them accordingly. We can tell that to the common people, most of them, because most of them won't accept the opposite, which is the Ash'ari Aqidah. And then he says, but for the people who can accept it, yeah, we'll give them the haqq, we'll give them the truth. So now the haqq, or the truth, becomes relative to the person. Some people will actually tell them the real truth because they might accept it, but most people we won't, because they'll reject it and commit kufr and disbelieve in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is shocking, but this is what Ash'ari Aqidah is. So when you guys keep saying, oh, the majority of the ummah are Ash'ari, Jake, or the majority of so-and-so countries are Ash'ari or Maturidi, most of them have never even heard of these terms. Those who have don't know much about it. Those who actually affirm or claim to be Ash'ari or Maturidi in name, they don't know what the actual Aqidah is of these schools. They may have went to a couple lessons, but they don't know the actual genuine foundations of these schools. And if they did, you'll see that they reject them. That's why many times I get accused of misrepresenting the Ash'aris, which I might in this video as well. But in actual fact, I'm explaining exactly what they teach and what they believe. They believe that the dhahir of the Quran is actually kufr. The apparent meaning of the Quran is actually disbelief. And they believe that the majority of Muslims, the awam, 99% of them, actually have and hold to kufri beliefs. And we're giving examples of them. Then Al-Ghazali continues in another text. He says, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was satisfied with affirmation. He was satisfied just purely with acceptance and acknowledgement from the Arabs, from the coarse Arabs, without their having learned a rational proof. In other words, the Prophet ﷺ knew that they didn't have the correct beliefs, and knew that they didn't actually have a good epistemological foundation for their beliefs. They didn't understand the rational proofs, but just a blind acceptance or affirmation, that was okay because they couldn't actually understand or really handle the truth. This is what Ghazali is saying. And he said again, then if a child grows up upon this doctrine and later becomes preoccupied with worldly affairs, no other belief will be open to him. However, he will attain salvation in the hereafter by adhering to the belief of the people of the truth, for the sacred law did not require the coarse Arabs to do more than just firm conviction or acceptance in the outward expression of these doctrines, or the dhahir or apparent meaning of the text. As for an investigation, inquiry, and chains of reasoning, they were not required of them at all. Meaning the common people are not required to really do this and really understand the crux of the haqq or the truth, because they can't. They're too stupid. They're like wild donkeys or wild asses. This is again referring to the previous quote from Al-Ghazali. So all of you guys, when you say, Jake, you guys are the minority, the majority of people actually are Ash'ari or Maturidi, and you go based upon country. Look, most of the people don't know what Ash'aris and Maturidis teach, and if they did, they would reject it. Not according to Brother Jake, according to Al-Ghazali, according to As-Sanusi, according to Al-Razi, according to the heads and the scholars of the Ash'ari Aqidah. That's why I'm bringing these quotes from Al-Ghazali today, to show you it's not just my claim. Your own Ash'ari scholars admit and explicitly state this. If you guys enjoyed this video and benefited from it and would like to see more content like it, then please consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the notification bell so you get notified of future videos. Comment, like, let me know your thoughts, guys. Share this on your social media platforms or with your friends and family. No matter how big or how small your reach is, it really does help with the algorithm. But until next time, guys, inshallah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.